Hello and welcome to the Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and here are today's topics. League Cup semi-final recap between Spurs and Chelsea, a preview of this weekend's marquee Premier League matches in Man City versus Chelsea, Aston Villa versus Manchester United, and Tottenham versus Arsenal. West Ham and Southampton with key victories over Norwich and Brentford, and big moves already happening in the January transfer market with Philippe Coutinho off to Aston Villa and Kieran Trippier and Chris Wood to Newcastle United. That's what we've got coming up in today's episode. All right, my friend, let's start with a little bit of League Cup action, semi-final, second leg. Chelsea get the job done. Away at Spurs, it's 1-0 they won, it's 3-0 on aggregate. Chelsea advanced to another final, a League Cup final. Of course, we'll find out who it's going to be, Arsenal and Liverpool in the other semi-final starting tomorrow. That'll be the first leg tomorrow. What have we learned, my friend, and how far these two teams, how different are they?
What we learned is that one team has more quality, better understanding of what they're trying to do, tactically better, technically better. There's a gap between the two teams. And there was a really telling shot, Rob, when I think it was Chelsea had gone 1-0 up in the first half. A Rudiger goal, pretty much courtesy of a bit of a goalkeeping error. Gleany, who came in for Lloris, tried to come for a ball that he didn't win. And at 3-0, you pretty much knew that was the game over. You know, the first game goal was always going to be the key in this one. But there was the telling shot I had was after 5 minutes after the goal, Chelsea were keeping the ball and almost, I wouldn't say toying with Spurs, but keeping away from Spurs. Spurs couldn't quite be aggressive in the press, couldn't really stop the passing movements. And the shot was Antonio Conte. And it was Conte kind of looking on the pitch. And then he sort of looked up to the sky, Rob, as if, and listen, who knows what he was thinking, but the impression you got was, I've got some work to do here if I'm going to close this gap. If I'm going to compete for silverware, and that's maybe winning cups, League Cup this one, FA Cup, Europa League, let's say, if that's the case. If they're going to challenge for titles, which I assume is the ultimate reason you get Antonio Conte in, cool, there's a lot of work to be done, mate. There's a lot of work with the group who are here, but certainly there's going to need to be additions and there's going to be a lot of work to get this team, because there's a real sizable gap between the two sides. And my thought watching the game was, I'm not sure this Spurs team, even with Antonio Conte, can get as close as we probably think to the top three. I just don't think there's enough in the side. Okay, today had Davies, Tanganga and Sanchez as a back three. No Dyer, no Romero, who probably would start, let's say. Højbjerg and Winks in midfield, Rob. Two real triers, two guys who put it in. But when you've got Jorginho and Kovacic, you've got technical players on the other side, it couldn't really affect the game. And then you had a Harry Kane who's still spluttering. No Heung-min Son. And Lucas Moura. Not a match, mate, in the end. Not a match. Not really. Unless Spurs got the first goal, which they didn't, it was a pretty much foregone conclusion. So
we're recording this, Rob, right after the West Ham Southampton game, the Premier League game that I was in the studio for and I watched. So I didn't get to see this game. I'm interested in the atmosphere, Rob, and what was it like in there? I mean, this is a semi-final of a domestic cup.
Yeah.
Are they looking into the sky as well, Rob, thinking, wow, we're not at the Chelsea level? Was there any signs of frustration, any booing, or what was it? What was the atmosphere like?
Great atmosphere to start, as you'd expect. The place is buzzing. There's a bit of anticipation. I think everybody, is Spurs fans going there thinking, we get the first goal, it's all on. We could have a chance. It's not Chelsea at full strength. From Chelsea's point of view, maybe a little bit nervousness about controlling the game and getting it. But as the game started to play out, once the goal went in, I thought realism hit the place at times. There wasn't a booing or a dissatisfaction, but it was almost like there was a lull, there was a quietness, Rob. There was a realization that, wow, that's them and this is us, and it is us and them at the moment, and there is a gap, and we've got a lot of work to do if we can close that gap. And it was just times when Spurs had the ball, Chelsea had a way of pressing and working to win the ball back, and they did it at times. When Spurs had the ball, so when Chelsea had the ball, Spurs couldn't really stop them. There was nothing Spurs could really do to stop Chelsea doing what they wanted. And I think that kind of hurt. That realism kind of was a bit like, wow, I didn't realise that that's the gap. That's the difference right now.
And talking about that, Rob, before we move on, I was interested because Joe Lewis is the owner, the main owner of Tottenham Hotspur. We know that Daniel Levy went out to the Bahamas, I think, where Joe Lewis might live or have a home there, and had a conversation. And I think we know that Antonio Conte has reported that has had a conversation with Daniel Levy. This is kind of what we all talked about. What do we think is going to happen in this window, Rob? And do you think that Antonio Conte has laid out, like, listen, it's there right now, the league table and this game, like, we need some players. Do you think we're going to see much movement for them, for Spurs, and finding some talent in January? Never easy, of course, in January.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And again, it was one of those where I think the director of the game took a shot up to the director's box. And they went on, is it Paratici? Is the director of football?
Yeah, Fabio Paratici, yeah.
And it was him, and he was named, actually. So it was something, obviously, they thought about. And, like, there was a shot of him, like, it's on him to bring players in. I don't get the sense, because it's probably not desperate measures, that too much will be done in this window. Right. It's not like we're going for a title or we're going to get relegated. Of course, 4 spots huge.
They've got a chance for the top 4, Rob. They've still got a great chance.
That's got to be the aim. But I think they would maybe put store in what Conte does, and maybe listen. I'm not saying nobody will come in, but I don't think there'll be 3 or 4 bodies in the door. 1, 2 at max, I think, and maybe a couple going out. There's no Ndombele involved. Robbie's talk about him. Dele Alli, there's talk about if somebody comes with the right offer or option on loan that they could go out. So could be some activity there. But I tend to sense that this conversation might have been about the summer and about what's required. And the game today was would reaffirm to Conte that what he's seen with his eyes is true. What he knows is this group needs more if he's going to be able to compete. And he's come back to English football, Rob, to compete. He's not come back to get to semi-finals of League Cup and then be beaten by the better team and not really have a chance in the game.
So, talk about the gap from Spurs to Chelsea. Let's switch back to the Premier League, Rob, and talk about some games happening this weekend. How about the gap from Man City to Chelsea? It's Man City home versus Chelsea. Coverage begins on Saturday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time on Peacock.
Yeah.
Where are we with Chelsea, Rob, in terms of catching City? Is this a must-win game for Chelsea to stay in touch? If they lose this game, they'll be 13 points behind. Same games played to Man City. If they win it, they're 7 points behind. Same games played. So, of course, never easy to go to the home of the champions and win the game. But do Chelsea have to win this to stay in the race, and can they win it?
Yeah, I think you're right, Rob. I think any team that's got ambitions now of catching City, closing the gap, so that includes Liverpool and anybody else who may feel they've got a chance. When you have those head-to-head games, you almost need to win them, Rob, to cut that deficit and give yourself a chance that if City have one bad day and you win the game, all of a sudden we could be down to 3 points, let's say, and then it could be on, as we get to Easter onwards. So you're right. I think about the first game, Rob, when Chelsea played Manchester City, and Manchester City, and I use this word because I remember it on the day, dismantled Chelsea, dismantled them, kept the ball away from them, had more chances, nullified Lukaku's threat, passed them to death, and won the game 1-0. But it was a 1-0 going on 4-0 on the day. Now, it's interesting because we're at a point where the Lukaku thing's interesting. I heard you and Dan talk about it today, and a bit like you, I'm kind of getting a bit tired of it, but I understand it's big news. It's a big signing. They spent up to £100 million, over $130 million on a striker, Rob, who's supposed to be a difference maker for this team. And if Chelsea are going to have a chance of closing the gap, of winning this game particularly, they need a good, informed Romelu Lukaku to hit City on the counter-attack when City dominate the ball like we know they will. And if an informed Lukaku can lead the line and do that with the Mounts or the ZX or the Havertz, whoever's playing underneath, Chelsea have enough ammunition and armoury to cause City a problem. But Chelsea have to attack well in the moments that they get the ball.
Rob, just thinking about the game today, again, I didn't see the Chelsea game today. Did they play with a back four? Was it like a close to a 4-4-2 for Chelsea? Because that's what the
it was a little bit of rolling Azpilicueta,
right
Rudiger, Christensen and Saw on the left hand side. So Azpilicueta rolled in a couple of times, and they had Hudson-Odoi one side, and then Azpilicueta came on the right hand side the other time. They had Kovacic and Jorginho in the middle of the park, and then he went Lukaku, Mount, and Werner.
Lukaku's role was the same, Rob, like central. It wasn't. He didn't sort of play in a way that he's drifting out to an outside, because I just think like that's where the joy is against City. If Lukaku can kind of go away from those excellent centre backs and make those little runs in behind when City are pushing high and have the ball, they're really really high. Lukaku's best when he's facing forward. Let's be honest about it. I mean, he can receive balls into him, and he's good at that. But that's where the chance comes from Chelsea, Rob, doesn't it? If Chelsea win the ball back from City and then flick the ball over the top, when Lukaku can
forward passes into him, exploiting those spaces that the fullbacks have come out of and vacated, and then whether you can get the Mounts and whoever, if it's Werner or Havertz in and around the penalty box, that's where the chance is going to come. But they're going to have to be solid and well set up and be like the Chelsea early season, who don't concede, who can be resilient. You have to break with pace and cause some problems, and take chances when they come. Rob, you'll probably get 3 or 4 good looks at a City at best. You got to probably put 2 of those away.
Now we know that the rotation of Man City has been such a strong point, and they've got very few injuries. Now reports, again, this is tough to predict, but the reports are there's been a COVID outbreak within the Man City squad and the technical staff. Again, this is just like we don't know. We don't know who's going to be available, who's not going to be available. I mean, it could affect this game, Rob, couldn't it? If there's key players from City, even though they've got the best squad, I mean, a really, really great squad. Others can come in, but that's something that's a bit of a, I don't know, it's a bit of a loose. We don't know how it's going to.
It's a misnomer that you can't really legislate for, that has nothing to do with tactics and systems. If somebody's got COVID or is isolating or not or healthy, that could affect the game. So we'll obviously have to look at that. Eyes will be on the team sheet when it comes out first thing. Was it like 6:45 Eastern time before the game? So we get a good look at who's playing. What we do know, and you touched on it though, that rest and the management of players has been outstanding by City to a point where they almost, if they lost 3 or 4 players, just seems like they've got 3 or 4 relatively fresh players to come in. Again, we don't know what COVID's done and who's been affected by that behind closed doors. I thought the other thing that's interesting, Rob, in this team was, we go back to the summer, we talk of a Chelsea team that won the Champions League, that beat Manchester City, let's remember, in the Champions League, and they added the piece that they thought was missing. Romelu Lukaku. Manchester City lost the Champions League. Many people thought they needed to add the piece. That was $125+ million worth of Harry Kane that they didn't get. Yet still top of the league, highest scorers in the Premier League, goals coming from all over the place. And it would almost seem that Pep again is proving it can be done in different ways. And yes, it's almost like Chelsea need Lukaku to come good to give Chelsea a chance of winning a title. He's a big part of what, for Manchester City, a centre forward isn't such a big point for them to win them a title. They can win it without, Chelsea can't.
And Pep's changes and tweaks to counteract that not getting a striker is small compared, because his game plan is so grooved, isn't it? Their normal gameplay is so grooved. I mean, over years after years, where it's everybody knows what they're doing, and there's some little adjustments with no striker, midfield players filling the box a little bit more. We've seen over the last couple of years now, which is working great. which is why I thought, well, can it work great? Can the midfield players keep scoring the goals? Absolutely they can. And it's down to his tweaks to the way that they play and encouraging your Gundawans, your Bernardo Silvas, your Sterlings and everybody else to get forward centrally and score. So, yeah, I mean, we're at that point where we're talking must-wins and for the title race. And City can really take control if they can be as consistent against Chelsea. They're more rested, Rob. They're going to have a whole week of rest where Chelsea have just played, of course, in that semi-final today. So, yeah, all points to a Chelsea, to a Man City victory. But I just feel Chelsea's best chance is playing on a counter-attack, or particularly with Lukaku, and that's where the threat is. Timo Werner, there is some pace with Chelsea, and that's where they can hurt Man City. If City's football isn't pinpoint and they give the ball away a few times, that's when Chelsea have got real chance to do a bit of damage.
Yep.
All right.
No doubt about that. Let's go to another big game at the weekend. It's the second meeting between these two teams, Aston Villa and Manchester United. They played at Old Trafford in the FA Cup. I think it was Monday night. Manchester United won that 1-0. A quite unconvincing 1-0 Manchester United win, which seems to be the way of United performances of late. Interesting game, this one, Rob, because it's got lots of different angles. Obviously, Stevie G up against Manchester United, Aston Villa at home. New players in for Aston Villa, not least Philippe Coutinho officially joining Aston Villa on loan from Barcelona. We'll talk about that in a moment. But just in terms of, let's just go back to the FA Cup, mate, and the 1-0 win. Are we in a position where a win's a win and we just have to take the win and move on? Or do we still, as Manchester United, with the win, kind of scratching our heads saying, really, is this? It almost feels, Robin, and my phrase as I was watching the game on Monday was like, it's a bit joyless for Man United. There's no, do you know when you play generally and win a game, there's like a feel good in the dressing room, and you yourself feel good about that's a win. We're in the cup. That's a win. That's 3 points. So, you look forward to the training in the next week, and I just don't get the sense that's quite happening at Old Trafford at the moment. It's
not. But isn't that to be expected, Rob? And you say a win is a win. A win is a win. But he's dragging this team at the moment, Ralf Rangnick. And there's a lot of talk about whether the players are supporting this guy and who is this guy. And God, we've got to do a lot more running and more work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people out there are saying, well, I don't know what he's doing. I can't see anything different. I think there's attempt at change, and there's no joy at the moment because they're in between this kind of like all over the place individualistic side that's super inconsistent over the previous manager over a period of time to try and make them more of a unit. And it's boring and it's grinding and it doesn't look great. And the players maybe not enjoying it. But I think it's necessary work, Rob. It's necessary work to get Rashford running back. And I want to talk about Marcus Rashford in a second. And Greenwood, whoever it is that have got to roll their sleeves up. Ralf Rangnick said, I want more effort. I need more running. I think he's absolutely right. We've said this for a while, Rob, that this Man United team and even some of the younger players, they're great going forward and they can light things up and they can score great goals. I don't see them rolling their sleeves up like Jared Bowen did today for West Ham United that we'll get on to talk about and do the other side of the game. Ralf Rangnick is trying to do that, Rob. And it's 1-0. It was grind. It was ugly. It wasn't great, but it's a 1-0 victory. And I can see that he's trying to get them to play more as a compact team, particularly without the ball. And for some of the star players, that's going to be a bit of a grind to do that. But I think it's necessary work. Again, he had a couple of steps forward, a few steps back, Ralf Rangnick, when he first came in. We sort of like against Palace. Oh, there it is. There's a little bit of pressing. Then all went away again. He admitted it all went away again. And in this game, there was a little bit of press. Well, that's what he's trying to do. There was a little bit of the attacking players working defensively. So he's trying to build some sort of foundation, Rob, of a solid, compact team that, lacks the quality and the flair and the joy, as you said. It does. But that joy comes, Rob, when the foundation's there, when they start to get familiar with their roles, when the wins start to become a little bit easier or with a bit more flair. I'm just not surprised. It's a struggle to play in, a struggle to watch. It's certainly a struggle for the manager, but I think it's work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I don't disagree that there's work that needs to be done, and in fairness, you make valid points in terms of like almost let's get back to some base first, and then
Yeah,
from that strong base we can then start to go and
right.
develop the game and get people. And I get that, but then I look at Stevie G with the Aston Villa team, Rob, and they work hard, and he's made tweaks, and they play better football. The team that played better football in the FA Cup game was Aston Villa. The team that looked more likely to score goals was Aston Villa. Now, I get that Manchester United are going through a difficult time, but we've still got talented players. You talked about Jared Bowen doing the hard work as well as playing. I'm saying that the Manchester United players don't look like
they're not ready for that, Rob.
They're doing either.
Isn't West Ham playing with a base and a foundation that Moyes has put in there for a period of 3 years, and now they're starting to enjoy it. Now they're starting to get the play with joy and all that we just talked about. I just think Man United are not there yet, and that's a valid point. Jared's early at Villa. I mean, they're still 14th in the league table, Aston Villa, but I get what we can see that.
Yeah, well,
what they're
I think
trying
what you
to do.
see with your eyes.
I just think Man United
and the individuals, and we'll get to the point, because my other sort of concern with Manchester United, and again, listen, you may tell me that once that base work's been done and the habits are kind of taken on, then we'll see another side. But I'm looking at individuals, Rob, and I'm not seeing too many who are prospering at the moment, who look like they're playing anything not near. Rashford I'd put in there, Greenwood I'd put in there, Sancho I'd put in there, Bruno Fernandes I'd put in there. Nowhere near their capabilities.
Well, all right, but I could argue on the other side of that, yeah, they want to be staying high. They want to be attacking all the time and shooting all the time and crossing all the time and not helping out defensively. That's what they want. They'd be happy doing that.
Well, not all the time, but maybe, keeping the ball, Rob, and having possession and creating chances and taking people on and combination play. That's all part of, once you've got the ball, what we're going to do with it. Almost seems like we forgot about all that now. That's okay. Let's just work hard.
Yeah, and that's true. I think the other point, is that the quality of, the quality that you might expect to produce a joyful Man United hasn't got the individual parts, Rob. And that's a different issue of, are these players all that? Are they as good as we think they are, given like the responsibilities in modern football where you've got to work and press and everything else? Whether this team has not got the star individuals that they thought they had. So you add that to a manager that wants to get more organised and more compact, and it can be a bit of a grind. And maybe that's what we're seeing right now. But again, I don't think you can just let those players go and play willy-nilly. We've seen over the last couple of years that it's been a bit inconsistent. Good United, bad United. Good United, bad United. And I think he's trying to he doesn't want the up and down. I think he said that many times. So, it's a tough watch right now, Rob, but I didn't expect anything else, really, in terms of trying to slowly put things right. Just on Marcus Rashford, Rob, before I talk Coutinho a little bit. Where are we with Marcus Rashford? Like, there's been a lot of press this week about, remember the shot that went in, he didn't follow up, and his body language looks really low, and he's struggling for confidence, and Rangnick said afterwards, Marcus Rashford needs a goal. He came out of the game late on. Are we going to see a fully fulfilled, or fulfill his ambition and the promise that Rashford brought 3 or 4 years ago now, or is trying to perform at this level beyond him consistently?
It's a good question. I had a couple of thoughts about it. As I was watching the game, I started to kind of, you always, as an ex-player, put yourself back in a position. Certainly wasn't playing at Marcus Rashford's level at that age. But I almost felt, Rob, and I don't know, you tell me if you were different or the way you played. I had a spell when I hit sort of 24, 25, where, I don't know, I had a spell where it would come hard. Everything became a little bit more difficult. Didn't feel quite as energetic. My touch was off. Snatching in front of goal. I don't know, where there's something where you go from a youthful player, can run everywhere, no worries, to maybe overthinking the game, starting to worry about things a little bit. And I remember there was about a 6-month period where hardly scored goals, didn't feel good about myself. Confidence probably dropped and just played safe.
Yeah.
Now, again, that was me. I don't know if Marcus Rashford's going through that stage in his career, because I think it comes to a lot of different players, and then you kick on again and you get to the 26, 27, and then you know yourself and you crack on. Again, I don't know if that's where he is. I also have a feeling with Marcus Rashford, and we've talked about his personality and that before. I think he's one of those sensitive kind of guys who feels things, who needs the vibe. And if the team are good and the crowd are up, he's on fire. But I'm not so sure when it isn't that he's that guy who can roll his sleeves up. He's not a Ronaldo. He doesn't possess that inner confidence and that drive that he has. He's a different animal, and I think that's what we're seeing in the player now. And I think he's almost overthinking it. I think he's almost like trying to play safe and just get through things. And if he can nick a goal, that'd be great. He's lost that kind of freedom and fluidity that he played with that makes him a special talent.
Yeah, and talking about special talents, Rob, and somebody else that's gone through maybe something that you talked about at FC Barcelona is Philippe Coutinho. And this signing for Steven Gerrard, and we know from, I heard an interview with his agent, Kieran, about Philippe Coutinho and wanting to come back with Steven Gerrard. Of course, they played together for a couple of years, I think it was, at Liverpool. On loan initially, and the understanding is that Villa are paying a segment of his wages, Barcelona are paying another segment to the wages, but there's actually a piece in the middle that Coutinho's not going to earn, is he's taking less money to come and play at Aston Villa. I think it's isn't it a great situation for all concerned, this loan first, so you make sure that he's ready to compete and be very effective at this very high, intense level. It's going to help his own chances of playing for Brazil, I think, in the World Cup. And get him. Is
there an option to buy, Rob? Do you know? I read a couple of things somewhere. Is there an option to buy in there?
I think there's an option to buy. I don't know what the number is, but I think there's an option to buy. Yeah. And I'd be a bit careful for Aston Villa. I know their ambition's strong, and I know the owners want to go out there and do things, but we've seen many clubs that try and force this a little bit too soon. But this is ideal because they can get a good look at Philippe Coutinho. If he's brilliant for the second half of the season, and that fee is not too high, what a great signing for the club, Rob. What do you think impact he can have in this team? And also, by the way, there's also a report. I'm just thinking about the left side of the team. Luca Digne is apparently in advanced negotiations, talks to go to Aston Villa as well. Now, that could be a left side of Luca Digne getting forward, Philippe Coutinho rolling inside with that amazing right foot ability to shoot and find those top corners. Coutinho, how exciting is it for the Villa fans?
Only good things, Rob. Only good things really should and could happen. I think if you're an Aston Villa fan, I think you're delighted with what you're seeing at the moment. Let's go back to the summer. You lose Jack Grealish. A lot of money goes to Manchester City. They sign in with that money Danny Ings, Emi Buendia and Leon Bailey, who I think all probably have still got more to give to the football club, but to me, decent signings to compensate for Jack. You then bring in Coutinho. You then bring in the quality of a Luca Digne. You've got Matt Targett on the left. You've got Ashley Young who can go. You're starting to get a group of players who are, in Steven Gerrard's style of play, going to be going into matches believing, regardless of the opposition, they can hurt you. They've got players who can hurt you now with the way that they're set up. If they can defend well and keep things tight at the back, that's going to be a front line, Rob, with lots of different combinations and mixes and rotations of talented individual players who can hurt you in many different ways. Coutinho's technical ability when he rolls inside is up there with the very best when he's playing well. Yeah.
I'll tell you what it does as well, Rob. And I think, by the way, I think the buyout or the price would be $45 million for Coutinho if all things go well. Yeah. I'll tell you,
which ain't bad, yeah.
Which isn't super high.
What you bought Ollie Watkins for similar money from Brentford.
Yeah. What I would do before we move on from this one, Rob, it adds expectation and it adds pressure on Steven Gerrard, and that's the other side to this. Bringing in these players that I guess he thinks he can trust. Philippe Coutinho, he knows him very, very well. I mean, you should be able to trust somebody. Luca Digne, fell out with Rafa Benitez, report says. Yeah, he's starting to spend a lot of money, and I just think it's going to be on the manager to fulfill the expectations with this squad. You just talked about the squad. You just talked about the front players. if they don't really markedly improve with some of these signings, then isn't Steven Gerrard going to be in focus and under more pressure than you might expect so early in his stint at Aston Villa?
It's an interesting point, because don't you think, and I hear what you're saying, but I almost go completely the other way. I think it's what Steven Gerrard wants. I think this is what Steven Gerrard wants to prove, that I want big players, I want that pressure, and I'm gonna show you how good a manager I am. And I think, and I'd be delighted again if I'm a Villa fan, because I think there'll be some managers, and I'm not in any way disrespecting Dean Smith, but I think Dean Smith might find that a bit of a burden. Oh, God, we've got to do. I just think Steven Gerrard, when he walked down that tunnel and a Manchester United fan giving him stick down the touchline, didn't bat an eyelid, mate. Didn't bat an eyelid. He's got an inner confidence that we talk about, that someone like Rashford could learn from and grow into, because he believes in himself. And we know about the slip, and we know the brilliant career he's had. But he hasn't got an inner confidence about himself and a belief in what he's doing.
Well, fair play to him. And he's going to need that.
Yeah.
This isn't Steven Gerrard the player, though, Rob. This isn't Steven Gerrard the player. This is a manager.
No.
And that's
correct.
And if he's got that sort of confidence that I've got this, and this team is going to shoot up the league, and with Coutinho there, then fair play. But it's something that does kind of force the point.
Yeah, it puts him in the spotlight, doesn't it?
Is it what sort of manager is going to be? Because we're going to find out pretty quickly. It can, if they struggle and they stay in the bottom half of the league table with these signings, then questions might start to get asked, and this is potentially quicker than it may have been if they haven't got these players. But you're right, Villa fans want to see Philippe Coutinho, want to see Luca Digne probably come to the football club. It is exciting, and let's see what they can do. And what a game, what atmosphere it's going to be on Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC. Aston Villa versus Manchester United, a great game to watch. Another game, Robbie Earle.
Yeah.
Another one of these. North London derby. Tottenham, we talked about earlier on, versus Arsenal.
Big weekend, my friend, this weekend.
Always is,
Big
isn't it?
weekend.
Always is. Okay, so my thoughts on this one, we had a quick chat about it on our broadcast at the end of the game, and there's been a lot of praise for Mikel Arteta and for Arsenal, and rightly so. Really great job up to this point, like really great job. North London derby is a little different. Do you think, and I'll throw it over to you, the Sakas and the Odegaards, Martinelli's, Smith Rose, I'm not sure that they're going to have to step up in a different way, like meet fire with fire, show some steel. The Arsenal team so far has not been about that. It's been about well-organised, well-coached, technically great, creative, really effective in the wide areas with the fullbacks getting forward, good signings, good team, new foundation. Can they add steel and determination and fight and fire into this squad to come through this sort of game?
I believe so. I think. Listen, I think we've slightly done them a bit of disservice. When you think, and I looked at it, the start that they had, what they came through, where they are. We've seen some spirited Arsenal performances during this first half of the season, and it hasn't always gone as well. And they've done it, and they've done it in a different way, and they've done it collective. And we talked about pretty much, a new goalkeeper, pretty much a new back four, Partey with one other in the midfield.
Partey's going to be missing, isn't he?
The front guys all playing the part.
Thomas Partey's going to be missing.
Obviously he missed. Obviously he misses. But what I'm saying is, in general, it's been a new group who've come together. They put the captain and probably the biggest and certainly your highest wage earner to one side, and they're growing. And I think this group, and we talked about it, that maturity and experience comes sometimes through difficult times. And this team, I think, are ready to have to face some difficult times. Now, there's no guarantee they're going to come out on top. And the game against Liverpool in the League Cup semi-final tomorrow is a bit of a pain, really, for them. A game right in between this, and then you go Sunday into a North London derby. It isn't a Tottenham team that come in with a load of confidence after their defeat, though, Rob. So depending on how the game goes and who plays, we'll see. But I'm looking forward to this one, because I'm looking forward to that very question. Are these kids ready for the next step? Are these kids able to take that next step that starts to put them in the class of '92, the David Beckham team, and we all talk about the players who were around them, and the Schmeichels and the Robsons and the Bruces. But that team had a bit about them. That's why they all had long careers and all had successful careers, because those kids had a bit about them, Rob. They could dig a little bit. We used to give them a bit of a dig when they came out of Wimbledon, and they'd stand up to you. My question is, will some of these boys for Arsenal crumble in the heat of a North London derby? I think not. I think they've been brought well in the academy. International players have played at a good level, number of games, and they've waited their time, Rob. This is kind of their time now.
I think we're going to learn, Rob. Whatever happens, they're going to benefit from this experience.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they're kind of a grooved team right now, which is what the manager wanted. But this is a different challenge. So reps at all types of games in the Premier League, reps in all matches, reps in North London derbies, to kind of get an overall sense of what is required to be consistent in this league, to be consistently strong against your rivals, and of course, ultimately to be consistent enough to challenge for the Premier League title. Just a side note, Rob, and this is kind of speculative, and it's a little bit of transfer rumory, but I want to mention it because there's talk of Dusan Vlahovic, the Serbian wonder kid, Fiorentina, ripping it up in Serie A. Arsenal are going strong to bring in this player. Now, we had David Ornstein on our show today, Rob, and he talked about it. And the two clubs, he feels, could reach an agreement in terms of a fee, but he's just not sure whether the player himself will want to come right now to Arsenal when what he's doing in this league in Serie A, that's gonna spark all the big clubs to take him. A 21-year-old striker that can score all different types of goals, is powerful, is quick, he's got a great left foot, headers, free kicks, penalties. He does everything. That would be some coup if Arsenal could get him.
Cool.
I mean, wow! You talk about young players.
Another young one, another right profile in the Premier League would probably mean the end of Aubameyang. Get him off your wage bill and move him on. Possibly deal with the Lacazette thing if he's not going to stay.
There's a striker issue, isn't there, with players end of contracts or whatever. Yeah. If they can pull this off,
ending contracts. I mean, it'd be brilliant business. I mean, read a little bit about him and his representatives. It's whether they're going to want to make a decision on something like that now. Will they want to wait till the summer? I mean, it'd be great for English football to bring another young star into the league, and it would be a coup for Mikel Arteta, like Philippe Coutinho's a coup for Steven Gerrard.
And they could put a strong argument across that this is actually a really good move for the player. He's only 21. It's like Erling Haaland that's very careful with the clubs he goes
there's
to.
Another.
I mean, playing good football in a great league with
young
players.
Give us 4 or 5 years, and there's still one more big deal left for you.
Yeah, there's maybe several. I mean, sadly, as Arsenal have known before, they've picked up some brilliant players, end up losing them.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to chuck it in because Arsenal fans who are listening or watching this, I mean, I've watched plenty of videos on this kid on YouTube. There's a lot out there, and it looks pretty exciting. Of course, we all know it's different league and everything else, but we'll see. Maybe unlikely in January, but wow, if they could get him, that'd be fantastic. All right.
Yeah. So big game on Sunday, North London derby, 11:30 some time on Peacock. So we'll be looking forward to that one. Let's move it to current day today. West Ham United, 4th in the Premier League. David Moyes continued to deliver the goods.
Yep.
Jared Bowen. Got to get him in the England squad. Yeah. Come on, Robbie Mustoe.
Absolutely.
Let's start a Twitter trend.
He was, I would say, nothing short of superb today, Jared Bowen. There's no arguments about that. He was involved in everything. We put together a little package of clips that he did in the game, and it was very similar to the highlights of the match because everything in the game came through him. His intelligence to play from the right side, making those runs infield was stunning. Norwich did a terrible job of securing the outside areas with West Ham's fullbacks coming forward and at will and with time to serve balls in the centres. And Norwich, of course, weren't great, but his intelligence, his general kind of attitude, mentality to the game is outstanding, and I love his energy. he'll get back and help defensively as much as he'll get forward. And there's not many players around that with quality that are prepared to do that. And there was examples of him running back and helping out his fullback, but also, of course, the main stuff today was getting through. I think me and Danny talked about it. The only thing really, he's 25, so there's plenty of growth and opportunities. Is if he was a better finisher, like the Mo Salah comparison, quick from that side, energy, skillful. Salah's a deadly finisher, where Jared Bowen isn't yet. He could have scored 2 or 3 more goals today, Rob. He had one disallowed for an offside from a ball that he swung in, but a couple of opportunities where he's kind of threw in the middle and he didn't score. He absolutely should be in the next England squad, and given the form of others that are in that role, playing for the big clubs in England, in the Premier League, Jared Bowen is right at the top of his game. What's that now? I think that's five Premier League goals and 7 assists. He was superb today.
Yeah, he's 8 goals, 8 assists in all comps this season. I mean, it's great numbers. You're right. I think if West Ham are going to be ambitious, though, and want to be a club that's top 4, consistently getting towards the top 6, Bowen's the kind of players they've got to hang on to now. Long contracts, Rob. Yeah. 25 years of age, good age, great attitude. Looks like he loves playing for the club. It's a London club. It's a big club. It looks like some possibly exciting times ahead. Don't always want to feel that you got to move them on. But it's interesting, and as you were making the sort of comparison with Mo Salah, somebody else jumped into my head as you were talking, and I thought, Sadio Mane, Robbie Mustoe, was at Southampton. Was a wide-ish player, wasn't a great goal scorer, was okay, worked hard, was probably a little bit quicker over the ground, but went to Liverpool and we saw another level.
Diogo
More
Jota.
goals, better finishing.
Another one, Diogo Jota.
So could Jared Bowen be that guy? Going in with better players in a bigger team. Now, at this stage, we're talking about two or three teams, really, who you'd say will be better than where he is with West Ham at the moment. So, would he fit in a Man City team? His work rate and things would. They've got plenty of people in those wide areas. Liverpool may be different with the age and obviously the situation with their wide players. Chelsea have probably got enough kind of similar types with your Mounts and your Ziyechs and Werners, etc. But it's an interesting one. And listen, if he continues to do what he does, he's English, he's 25 years of age, he's going to be attraction. I'd like to feel that West Ham know his value, see his value, and start thinking about, listen, we'll have to talk this kid.
West Ham fans won't thank us for talking about this, Robin, and rightly so. Like, West Ham United, go and buy a couple. What a good time. What a good time to add to this team. What a good time. Yeah. And January, of course, isn't easy, but there's been a ton of good players over the years, by the way, that have moved in January.
Well, the Lingard thing's still out there, isn't it? And you know that he fits in and can give you something different.
Go and bring in Lingard and somebody else, like another player to add to this. Maybe that can play up front. If Mikel Antonio gets hurt, somebody else that can do that. Joe Bowen could do that. But West Ham has spent a lot of money in the past, Rob, at certain times. Often when they struggle and they try and buy their way out of trouble. What a good time right now, to add a couple to say, you know what? Because I look at this league table. We've talked about Man United. We've talked about Spurs and how far off the top pace that they are. Arsenal are in it as well. But West Ham United, they're 4th right now. And
they've got a chance, mate.
They've absolutely got a chance. They have got a chance. Their numbers are good throughout, whatever you look at. If they can stay healthy, but if they can bring in 1 or 2 of quality that can really rotate in and out and give some of these players a bit of a break, because West Ham's best team is their best team and they don't rest much, West Ham could then fulfill an incredible transformation from when Moyes first went there to what they could be potentially a top 4 finisher. So I just think, now's the time to try and step forward and improve the quality of that squad.
Little line on Norwich City, Rob, because it's not looking great. I mean, I think the biggest surprise is they're still intact. No goals since, I think it was November the 30th against Newcastle United. No Premier League goals. No real threat. Tactically outdone. Don't deal with problems in the wide areas. Runners coming from deep positions, causing them all kinds of problems. I know you kind of gave him still a little bit of hope. I mean, I think it's done and dusted, mate. I think it's done and dusted.
The only hope
I think, unfortunately for Dean Smith, he's going to have to steer this team out of the Championship.
I mean, the only hope I give them is just the numbers. You know, they've got to convince themselves, Rob, that they can somehow find a way past Newcastle, who are 1 point ahead, Burnley, who are 1 point ahead, and Watford, who are 3 points ahead. Now, there's a few games to make up, particularly for Burnley. That's not Herculean to think that they can do that. It's just when you see the 44 goals against and 8 goals scored in 20 that you think.
I was going to say, do you understand you have to score a goal to win a game? And they've only done it on 8 occasions.
I know.
Pookie's got 5 of them, I think it is.
5 of the 8 Pookie's got,
Yeah,
not very good for my old mate Dean Smith there. It's a tough job, and you're probably, you're almost certainly going to be right. He's going to have to regroup, get them up again, and make a better fist of staying in the league. Right, next game.
Let's to the other game yesterday. There was a really good game, actually, at St Mary's. Southampton ended up winning 4-1 against Brentford. Really enjoyed the game, Rob. Enjoyed seeing Southampton under new ownership. I think it's Serbian ownership now that they're looking to do like a mini Man City thing, group of clubs where they'll move the players. And I think the ex-director of football at Brentford's joined the group as well. Good day for them, first day. I'm sure they'll think that every Premier League game is as easy as that, a 4-1 win. Another good day for Ralph Hasenhüttl. I think for the value of coaching and the value of working with a group of players, can't spend big money, can't have big salaries, but has to do it a different way. And Southampton jumped above Brentford in the table and sit pretty comfortably because it was a team at the start of the season, Bob. We both had a little worry about,
big worry.
Whether they selling Danny Ings, who was the man who got them goals, a little worried how they do, but they shared the responsibility around. They're getting enough goals from enough people in the team. And there's a certain young man I want to mention here, Rob, who just continues every time I see him to impress me. And this is this kid, Armando Broja. Did a little bit of research on him this morning because I was like, 20-year-old kid born in Slough of Albanian parents, played already for the Albanian national team, has got 10 caps. Went on loan to Vitesse in Holland last season, played 21 games, 12 starts, got 10 goals, was their top scorer in the league. He's come now to Southampton, 5 goals in 8 Premier League appearances, 2 goals in 2 League Cup appearances. Can score goals, he's got pace, he's got a bit of drive and fire about him, a bit of physicality. At 20 years of age, Rob, I'm looking at him and saying, I'd take him before Nketiah at Arsenal, more than not. I'd look at Mason Greenwood's a rare talent, but what I see of Broja I like, and I'm not saying he's better than, but I'm telling you what, let's see how the next 2 or 3 years develop in both these players. Because he looks like the real deal, my friend. And he's also still a Chelsea player that could go back to Chelsea and become an asset to them.
He could. They spent a lot of money on Romelu Lukaku. They spent a lot of money on Kai Havertz. They spent a lot of money on Timo Werner. We've just talked about a couple of clubs that wouldn't he be perfect for? West Ham United. Go make him a big offer. Go make Chelsea a big offer. You bring in Jesse Lingard. You bring in Armando Broja, and maybe Broja to some people out there that don't. I'm sure actually that not many know potentially what he could do, but he's got a lot going on. He's got a lot going on with his. It's just his demeanour. He's a big, strong guy that's quick. He can finish. He's got attitude. Or if Arsenal don't get their first guy, Arsenal, young striker, aggressive. Could lead the line for Arsenal potentially. Now these are big clubs and big moves. But I'm telling you now, I'd be willing I've seen probably half a dozen games, 10 games of this guy. I'd be willing to say to my manager if I was director of football, let's go for him because I think he's got the attributes that can do well in this Premier League, and I think he was a difference here. Goes through really quick, really good with his feet, finishes it off. That's the exciting thing, and that's tough for us at the start of the season to know his impact. Like we're like, well, Southampton's going to struggle here. They've got rid of Ings, and then Brozier comes in. Like, oh, he's interested in this Chelsea young player. And then you see him play. It's like, wow, this is really good for them. So I think it's 5 Premier League goals, like 1 in 3 for them as a young kid. Yeah. So they were good. It's really interesting, and there's too much detail to get into it now, Rob. But I did go down a rabbit hole of Rasmus Ankersen, the guy that's founded this Sport Republic with another chap. I can't remember his name. And what he did at Brentford.
Dragan Solak.
Dragan. He's the money. Yeah. He's the Serbian money guy that's funding this investment company. But it really is going to be the abilities of Rasmus Ankersen, who's going to moneyball this at Southampton. Who's going to moneyball it like he had at Brentford to great success. Now again, I don't want to get too much into it, but Ankersen, if you go online and you search him, he's made some pretty impressive presentations, Rob, to actually businesses about finding, the underrated talent and bringing it forward when others overlook these players. The whole kind of moneyball thing. So it's interesting. It's got to be exciting for Southampton fans. It's not going to be millions thrown at the club for new players like a Newcastle, but it's going to be intelligent investing, recruiting into new players and probably new clubs as well under their kind of umbrella. But so his first kind of real Premier League game against Brentford was kind of interesting. But yeah, again, there's a lot more detail to that if people are interested. I think Southampton's going to be a pretty interesting place to watch over the coming months and seasons of how he and this new ownership group trying to bring the club forward.
And I think it's great for Ralph Hasenhüttl as well, because the profile of the coach who, loves working with talent, looks like he's, great at developing them.
It's a good fit.
And, his teams always look like they're well prepared when they go to a game. So, great win for Southampton, and a few exciting players in the likes of Brozier, maybe more to come with the new ownership. Talking about teams with new players, my friend, the January window is open. I think we all realised when the Saudi investment group took over Newcastle that this window was going to be important, with a Newcastle team that were lounging in the bottom 3 places of the Premier League. We've so far seen Kieran Trippier come in, current England international from Atletico Madrid. All the talk is, and I think probably at this stage it may well be done, that the medical of Chris Wood, the Burnley striker, will be the latest addition to the Newcastle playing squad. I don't, for any reason, think that'll be the end of it for Eddie Howe in this group. I think they're desperate to get 2 or 3 more faces in before the window closes. Talk to us about Chris Wood, and then talk to us about what else you see Eddie and Newcastle doing between now and the end of the month.
I mean, first of all, Kieran Trippier, right? Brilliant signing. Great signing.
Yeah.
Experienced pro. We know that he's a top pro. Reliable, consistent. It's going to be good for this team. Right back, they needed a new right back. Really, I mean, he got to the semi-final of the World Cup, didn't he, with England, and the final.
Scored a lovely goal, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored the free kick, didn't he? So that's a good signing, and that's going to make him better. And there will be many more signings come to the football club. But Chris Wood, I mean, this is so interesting, mate. And there's arguments about he's got 3 league goals this year, and some fans, Newcastle fans, well, yeah, it's all right. Is he going to score a lot of goals for us? He hasn't done great with Burnley. But let's get back to basics here. They've got to beat Burnley, and they've got to, if they can get above Burnley in this Premier League table, which I have in front of me, assuming that Norwich are not going to survive.
Let's
and assuming that Watford, and it's a little unfair on Watford because they got plenty of opportunities to get out of it, but it could come down to Newcastle and Burnley for the 3rd club. And not only are you bringing a striker in which you need to replace Callum Wilson, not that he's as good as Callum Wilson, but you're taking away the main threat of Burnley and Sean Dyche with this forced move because it's a release clause that's been met by Newcastle. Again, he's just having his medical. It's not done and dusted yet. I mean, I want your take on it, Rob. Sean Dyche, what is he thinking? Their main man, he hasn't been great this season, but he has been. He's got 10 of 12 and 14 goals the last 3 seasons. That would have been the man to score the goals of Burnley to get him out of relegation issue. He's going to leave.
Yeah.
Disaster,
so I heard somebody talking about this today, Robert, which was interesting. It was something I hadn't thought of or didn't know wasn't necessarily buyout clauses when we were playing in contracts particularly. But I heard something today where they said, what's most unusual about this situation with Chris Wood is that the buyout clause has been allowed in January. Normally, buyout clauses only go from season to season, so that you don't usually get buyouts until the summer. So a manager knows at least, I'm not going to lose that player in the January window if somebody comes in off at X. Burnley, for some reason, didn't have that in the contract. Newcastle found out about it, knew they could release him for 25 million, did it, and Burnley could do nothing about it. And Sean Dyche, now, I'll tell you what was also a bit embarrassing for Burnley as well, that Ben Mee had done an interview, I think it was yesterday, talking about Chris Wood and how important he's going to be, and there's no way we'd let him go, and there's no way the club are going to let him go. And then obviously less than 24 hours later, he's been seen up in the northeast. I just think it's quite astonishing that it's been allowed to happen. It absolutely puts Burnley in a difficult place. People talk about his 3 goals that he's got this season, but also looked at his last 3 seasons, Rob. 12 last season, 14 the season before, 10 before that, top scorer in all the occasions at his football club. Averages about a goal every 3 games. With a team with Newcastle that will get service in, and you've got St Maximum, and you've got the Richies and people who can put deliveries in the box, you get the sense that he'll have the kind of service and things that he'd want. My one worry for teams at the bottom of the league are Timo Pukki and Emmanuel Dennis. Better beware, because Newcastle might just buy those 2 as well, and then just disarm every team down there. Just disarm everybody who's up against you.
Yeah,
get them in,
take them all away,
and then you're good, aren't you? No one else has got a striker. No one else can score a goal.
But there is time for Alan Pace, the new ownership at Burnley Football Club, with their £25 million. There's plenty of days left in January. Come on,
they've got to do something, Rob.
Come on, then.
They've got to do something.
They've got to do something. They've got to do something. And Alan Pace went in there and said, we'll support the manager, whatever he wants, within reason. Now, Burnley fans need the new ownership to put their hands in the pocket, because this is almost emergency time. I'm not sure they can afford to let this go and drift. Even though it must be tempting if you're the ownership to keep £25 million in your bank account, this club could go down. I thought they were going to go down before this news. Given
I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't. Are you changing?
But I'm slightly worried, and I'm worried about the goals. But I'm also worried in the Chris Wood, what he is, what he represents, what he does for Burnley, Rob. That ability to be able to go into him, and the ball will land somewhere in a 5-yard radius of where that challenge is, and you play from there. That's a great option that Burnley have had that at times has been helpful to keep them in the Premier League. You take that away, and all of a sudden, you don't just take away the goals, you take away an attacking option that has served them well.
Yeah, they've got a couple of games in hand over Newcastle, Burnley have. But when you look at the league table, it's going to be 3 from the 4 down there.
Yeah,
and
3 from 4.
If Newcastle, with the new players, and there will be other players, can get a little run together, then they could be the ones that the 4th bottom or better. They're the ones that can pull out of it. The other 3 could struggle.
It's Newcastle Watford, isn't it? 10 o'clock this weekend.
Yeah.
Newcastle facing Watford.
Yeah.
And I also just had a quick look at. Guess what the last game of the season is for Burnley?
It's Newcastle.
Home
is it Newcastle?
to Newcastle.
Oh, blimey! Chris Wood sends his previous team down.
Chris Wood coming back, getting a hat trick to send Burnley down. Yeah, it was a Burnley team actually last week. Just to add on, that lost 2-1 in the FA Cup as well. Got booed off after the game. Sean Dyche, I think, wasn't there with COVID, but Ian Welling, I think, was on the side. But not a good period for Burnley, and obviously not a great week losing their top scorer. Ashley Barnes still out at the moment. Cornet's been in and out with injuries. So, a team that struggled to score goals. It's a little bit of a worry. But, my friend, I think that's time to wrap it up here on our midweek podcast. Plenty of matches coming thick and fast. We'll be back on Sunday, January the 16th, to recap all the weekend's games. The race at the top, where Chelsea hosts Manchester City. The race for 4th, where Spurs take on Arsenal in a big North London derby. And a scrap at the bottom of the table, Newcastle, with their new players and possibly Chris Wood, face Watford in a must-win game for both those teams at the foot of the table. But for now, I'm Earle. He's Mustoe, together with the two Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe. Please stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.